into escalation requests for the 4 different mitigation types: blocked IP, delays timing out to soft bounce, spam filtering, and IP warm-up, or pre-planned volume spikes as well. And then we'll go into overall mitigation etiquette. I will be answering questions in the comment section during and after the presentation. So let's go ahead and get into demystifying the Microsoft mitigation process. So Microsoft has a mitigation form, and most deliverability people have used it on the regular. There's an issue title at the top and you actually fill out what type of mitigation request that you want to do. And then throughout the form, you fill out various tidbits of information. You would think that that's all they need in order to fulfill your request. And so if not, you would think that they would reach out to you and say, I need this, I also need something else, etc. However, Hotmail's legal team requires that they only send the legal approved templated responses. So rather than getting an email asking specifically what they need, you get denial after denial after denial after denial. So finally, after weeks of trying and back and forth, you finally get your mitigation implemented. And it can be painful and stressful, going back and forth constantly, providing more and more information, escalating, requesting to escalate daily, sometimes multiple times a day. However, that's just the nature of the beast, right? So let's go into what it takes to get a mitigation with Microsoft. So you need to be clear on the issue type in the support request first and foremost. So if you have blocked IPs, make sure that you call that out. Don't just state mitigation request. If you're denied, you need to reply to the denial asking for an escalation. Collect as much evidence as you can proving your cause, and then don't open another ticket. Just keep replying to that chain. Try replying during different times, different shift times, so possibly you get different support personnel that may treat your information differently, or maybe even understand it a little better of what you're trying to explain. Also, just note that the denial is only the legal approved template. So they're not telling you exactly, they're sending you that template because they don't have enough information to go ahead and provide you with that mitigation. So continue escalating each time, providing more and more information. And you'll notice that day in and day out, as you are escalating and providing that information, you'll continue to work on the problem with the customer, trying to correct it on the sender side as well. And so you will have new things to add when escalating, such as the customer made this new change today, the customer is now doing this, or we've removed these subscribers, or it's been 2 weeks since we've made this change, etc. And as well as the stats may change, and say we're seeing stats change, however, not to where it should be, etc. So this process can take up to 3 weeks. So it's important that you're persistent and you continue responding back and asking for escalation, and not giving up, because ultimately, once you either make the correct changes that are required in order to get that mitigation, or you provide the correct information that is required to achieve that mitigation, ultimately you will have success. So let's first go into the blocked IP issue. So the issue title is blocked IPs. So this would be a blocked IP mitigation request. You'll fill out the form, provide all the information. If you receive that denial, then you will reply back to that denial, providing more information. So while you may have provided some of the information in the form, it's important to go ahead and restate a lot of that information. So customer details, how long the IP's been blocked, any historical information that may be helpful, detailed background of why you believe it went wrong, IPs, host name, sending domain, supporting stats, stats of other mailbox providers performing well. So if you are actually only being blocked by Microsoft at that time, provide your delivery stats for other mailbox providers, such as the major providers like Yahoo, Comcast, Gmail, etc. And also make sure to include fresh bounce responses. So in the support request, it does ask for a bounce response. However, in your email asking for escalation, provide a new fresh one. So each time you ask for an escalation, if you're providing bounce errors, make sure to provide a new one from that day so that you can show that it is continuing information. So then you'll want to continue escalating by providing more and more evidence to support and tell your story. And eventually you will either get the response of mitigation, or you'll see a change in the stats showing that the IP has been unblocked. We've seen that happen as well at times. We'll actually see the unblock before we get the response saying it's been resolved. Here is an escalation for blocked IPs. This is an actual example where we ask that the issue be escalated. We provide the IP that is 100% blocked, and it's been blocked for a certain number of days. And then we provide all the things that the customer has done to try to resolve the issue on their side. Mailbox providers actually respect this. They want to see that you are making changes, trying to resolve the issue on your side. And therefore, if you've made a change, then they will be able to say, yes, that the mitigation can be granted. And even though if you didn't ask for mitigation with time, that change would reflect in your deliverability with Microsoft. You making the change, letting them know about it, they can actually make that change reflect much sooner than not reaching out. Also note at the end of this email, we ask for any information you can provide would be greatly appreciated. So we're asking for any more information that they could provide us. They don't, again, necessarily reply back with more information because most of the support personnel are required to send those legally approved templated responses. However, occasionally you'll escalate high enough that you will get someone that will speak to you directly. And the interesting thing there is that they'll provide you a little bit of information. It's not going to be everything that you would want to know, but they'll give you a little more information sometimes. But so really, it doesn't hurt to ask either way. So next we'll go into delays timing out to soft bounce. So delays are actually pretty normal. 421 errors, oftentimes they'll happen for various reasons. However, if the delays continue and they time out to soft bounce and will not deliver in the retry period, that's when you need to reach out, fill out the support request for delays timing out to soft bounce, and then provide, again, the customer details, campaign details, the IPs, any historical information that may be helpful, supporting stats at other mailbox providers performing well, and then delay bounce log samples. So again, when you are sending that escalation request, make sure that you send fresh delay bounce log samples each time you respond. This gives them more information and also proves that it's continuing to happen, that you're still seeing it. If you see delays while warming up, you should pause your ramp at the current send volume. Once the delays stop, then you can start ramping again. So basically, if you are sending 12,000 messages and at 10,000 it starts delaying, stay at 12,000. Don't ramp up to 24,000. Stay at 12,000 until that 2,000 delays actually go away. And once that stops occurring, then you can start ramping up again. It can take about 7 days to level out. Sometimes it just depends. However, sometimes it'll just be 2 to 3 days as well. Another option, though, is to back down. So say you're sending 12,000, 2,000 are delaying, back down to 10,000 and only send 10,000 until for a couple of days, and then start ramping up again. So you might try both methods and see which one works best for you. I've heard both work just fine. So here we have an escalation for delays timing out to soft bounce. So this email particularly is stating that the dedicated IPs are seeing a ton of delays. We're seeing rate limiting and timing out. Basically, these delays are timing out 100%. So 0% accepted rate for today's send for these two IPs. So not only are we providing all that information as well as the IPs, the sending domains, the log samples, we're also stating that, look, we're not getting complaints because your JMRP process is broken. It's currently working, but during this time frame, the JMRP was broken, and therefore I could not sign up those IPs for the JMRP. Therefore, most likely we're getting complaints and not unsubscribing them, not suppressing them. And so that was causing the issue. So it's really important to paint the entire picture for Microsoft. Tell them everything. So not only, is it not on the JMRP because it's broken, but we're seeing all of this information. And again, you'll also see log samples from today. So those delays, and with the bounce message, the 421, we provide that fresh from today's date, so that, even if we filled out the form 2 weeks ago and we're still trying to work on resolving this issue with Microsoft and escalating, each time I escalate, I prove that with logs that it's still continuing to happen. Also here, please let me know if you need any additional information. This is my way of, I've given you everything. Is there anything else I need to give you? Basically, let it be understood, I would like mitigation, right? So please unblock me, right? Again, they won't necessarily reply. However, it doesn't hurt to ask, because you never know. So now let's discuss spam foldering. So you fill out the form for spam foldering, you ask for spam foldering mitigation, and you in that form, you provide, instead of providing a bounce, you might provide headers. You may not be able to provide the full headers. That's why it's great whenever, it's not great when you get a denial, but if you get a denial, you can then reply back with all of the normal information you normally provide, with supporting stats, but also those stats of the other mailbox providers performing well. This is really important because with Gmail or Yahoo or any other mailbox provider, if you provide the open rate, Microsoft can then see, hey, we're spam foldering them, but they're getting 40-something% at this at Gmail. So they're getting great open rates. Maybe we need to make some adjustments in our systems. And then also provide full headers. So again, filling out that form, you can provide headers, but in an email, you can provide the full headers to make sure that everything is in there for every email, every IP, and every email sent using a different IP if multiple IPs are involved. So again, continue escalating, providing more evidence, as well as what steps need to be taken to, or have been taken to correct the underlying cause of spam foldering. So here we have an escalation for junk foldering or spam foldering. This email, again, please escalate this request to upper management. Most likely, this is a second or third request. Again, we state all the background information, all of my evidence in this first paragraph showing the fact that one IP shows there's a green filter, one IP shows the red filter. Both IPs are sending the exact same content in a round robin format. All IPs are opt-in. Actually, what change we've made, so the sender has tightened up engagement from 90 days to 30 days for 2 weeks, and has still not seen a correction in the filters. So basically, yes, if I didn't reach out, having tightened up that engagement, it may take 4 weeks. It may take a little longer for that filter to change, but in hopes that stating that here, maybe they'll be able to make that adjustment for us in advance. And then, of course, the BCL and PCL, you know, what those numbers are or that they're low, and then obviously complaints being low on both IPs. And so, as you can see here, we've got both IPs listed with the open rate. So one IP has a 42.5% open rate, one has a 2.03% open rate, and then the complaint rate. So obviously there's a huge disconnect between both IPs. We also state that the IPs are in SNDS and JMRP. So don't forget to, you know, every single bit, paint that full picture. And then finally, headers for each IP. So as you can see here, we did side-by-side comparisons for each IP. Since one IP is performing really well and one IP is spam foldering, obviously, they can actually see side-by-side comparison showing that the actual headers, the authentication's all set up correctly. Everything is exactly the same. It's sending the same content. I would use the exact same email. So that they can see that there's no reason that one should perform so poorly over the other. So now let's go into IP warm-up, or another type would be pre-planned volume spike. So this would be already warmed IPs that are going to have a spike in volume that we know in advance. So obviously you would fill out this support request. You're going to use the keywords preemptive accommodation. So preemptive accommodation, so if it's for IP warming or preemptive accommodation for volume spike, those would be the two issue titles. If you do not receive the response requesting IPs, new volumes, it's basically the form that you see at the bottom here, that little table. If you don't receive a response with that table in it asking for that information, you can either escalate, again stating preemptive accommodation request, or you can go ahead and just reply and ask for escalation, providing that information in your own using this format. And it doesn't necessarily have to exactly match this format. You'll see on my preemptive accommodation for volume spike that I have a sample of, it's not exactly the same, but it was successful. But once you receive that form, you fill out, make sure to include the customer and business practice description. So even though this is just asking for IPs, anticipated traffic and notes, make sure that you include the customer and business practice description and any other information that would be helpful as well. So here we have a successful preemptive accommodation. on already warmed IPs. So as you can see this email, this was an escalation. I filled out the form. I did not receive, I just received a "we don't know what's wrong" email. We don't see any problem with your campaign email. I didn't receive the form. I went ahead and just replied back with, just want to give you a heads up that this new brand is launching their new product on this certain date. And we know that the transactional IP addresses, which I've listed here, will increase by 9 times. So this is a well-known brand. They had a product go live this past year, and on the go live date, not only did they expect it, but it did. IP volume increased overnight by 9 times. So we knew this was going to happen, so we were able to explain this to Microsoft. As you can see here, the form is not quite like the other. So as you can see here at the bottom, it's not quite the exact same. However, we did list out the different domains, so Hotmail, Live, Outlook, and MSN, with the current daily volume as well as expected daily volume. This actually was very successful. The customer was able to, we used this process not only for Microsoft, we also reached out directly to Yahoo and Comcast with this exact setup and form, and provided the Yahoo, all of the Yahoo domains and their volume expected hike, as well as for Comcast expected hike, and they both replied back with accommodations. So we were able to have a very successful launch date. The customer was very happy. We didn't see any delays. Everything went smoothly. So now let's go into the mitigation etiquette. So basically, this mitigation etiquette is only, can be used for not only Microsoft, but any other mailbox provider that you are trying to mitigate with, as well as blacklists that you're trying to delist. So here are the key takeaways. Don't ask to be unblocked. So you would think that if you are filling out an unblock request or a delist request, that you just state, please unblock me, and that's the whole point of the form. Actually, that's implied. So it's best that you actually detail your investigation efforts and detail any changes that you've made, and then ask what other changes can be made. If you don't have any, if they have no response with other changes that need to be made, then obviously they can unblock you. It's a given, right? So also in your response, make sure that you provide, background information, your information. Don't forget to tell them who you are and how your relationship to the customer that you're mitigating for, if you're doing that on behalf of someone else. And don't forget to relist the IPs and domains affected. Oftentimes we'll fill out the form, but not when we're emailing back and forth. If we don't mention it again, it can get lost in the back and forth. And then provide evidence. So not only provide examples of bounces, delays, headers, and also, again, those mailbox provider stats of other ISPs or other mailbox providers can be very useful in proving that, hey, I'm a good sender overall. This is just an issue with you. And then make sure you provide whatever you've done to correct the issue. And so any changes you've made, again, there's not too much. The entire list, it's fine. And then also, if you've made changes to your list hygiene, provide what it was previously and what your current adjustment was. Oftentimes this will help them understand that, no, it wasn't necessarily a mistake on their side, but you've corrected the issue. Therefore, go ahead and correct it on their side. So, and then make sure to request follow-up. This again is asking, the best way to request for follow-up is just to ask for other changes that you can make. So that is it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments section, and I would love to answer your questions during the rest of this sharing session. Thank you and have a great day.